Real estate words and terms with meanings and examples, part number 3. Seller's agent, which means an agent representing the seller's interests. For instance, the seller's agent listed the property on MLS. Dual agency, which means when one agent represents both buyer and seller. For example, dual agency can create conflicts of interest. Listing agreement, which means a contract between a seller and agent to sell property. For instance, they signed the listing agreement last month. Multiple listing service, MLS, which means a database of properties for sale shared by agents. For example, their home was on the MLS for 3 weeks. Homeowners Association, HOA, which means an organization managing a community's shared spaces and rules. For instance, the HOA fees cover lawn maintenance. Inspection, which means a professional check of a property's condition. For example, the home inspection revealed a leaking roof. Appreciation, which means an increase in property value over time. For instance, the house showed 5% appreciation last year. Depreciation, which means a decrease in property value over time. For example, the building's value depreciated due to wear and tear. Title insurance, which means insurance protecting against defects in property ownership. For instance, title insurance covers legal disputes over ownership. Lien, which means a legal claim against a property for unpaid debts. For example, the house had a lien due to unpaid taxes. Zoning, which means regulations controlling land use and development. For instance, the area is zoned for residential use only. Easement, which means the right to use someone else's land for a specific purpose. For example, the power company has an easement to maintain lines. Fixtures, which means items permanently attached to a property. For instance, the built-in shelves are considered fixtures. Offer, which means a formal proposal to buy a property at a set price. For example, they made an offer below the asking price. Counteroffer, which means a reply rejecting the original offer with different terms. For instance, the seller made a counteroffer with a higher price. Under contract, which means when a buyer's offer has been accepted, but sale not final. For example, the house is under contract pending inspection. MLS listing, which means a property advertised on the multiple listing service. For instance, the MLS listing included photos and details. Escrow account, which means a special account holding funds for taxes and insurance. For example, the lender requires an escrow account for taxes. FHA loan, which means a government-backed mortgage with low down payment. For instance, FHA loans help first-time homebuyers. VA loan, which means a mortgage guaranteed by the Department of Veterans Affairs. For example, veterans can qualify for VA loans with no down payment. Conventional loan, which means a mortgage not insured by the government. For instance, conventional loans often require higher credit scores. Private mortgage insurance, PMI, which means insurance protecting lender if borrower defaults. For example, PMI is required if the down payment is less than 20%. Amendment, which means a change or addition to a contract. For instance, they signed an amendment to extend the closing date. Ballpark figure, which means an approximate estimate of costs or value. For example, the agent gave a ballpark figure of $300,000 for the house. capital gain, which means profit from the sale of a property. For instance, the seller had a capital gain of $50,000.